Welcome to Trustee Talk. I'm your host, Michelle Beckham-Corbin, and my guest today is Anderson Township Trustee Russ Jackson. Russ and I are going to be talking about economic development. Russ, so good to see you back here in the office again.
Always a pleasure.
And I guess we can kind of dive right into the meat of our subject today. Can you tell us a little bit about what economic development consists of in Anderson Township?
Yes. Our approach to economic development is a little different than most other communities and what you read in the press. Essentially, the concept is that you read about is that the governmental entity hires people and they throw out a lot of money to attract businesses. Our approach is quite different in that we want to help businesses and new businesses, but not subsidize them. We have our primary revenues, almost our only revenues now, come from property taxes. So bringing in 2,000 people doesn't really provide any direct benefit to the community unless all those people live here and buy here and that sort of thing, because we don't have any income tax, which most cities have. We really have a very limited amount of potential land to develop with economic development. We've got the area that we're now looking at again in Angkor, northern Anderson.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you to explain where Angkor
northern was. Anderson, area some people think is part of Newtown, but it's not. Then we have the riverfront. We've just completed a riverfront plan that does involve development. And then we have more redevelopment along Beachmont Avenue, Clough Pike, the Salem Business District, and even Skytop. A lot of people don't even realize that Skytop is part of Anderson. Skytop at Beachmont and 32 is.
I didn't realize that.
A lot of people don't realize it. I personally been working with the folks who handle the leases there in trying to help them find new businesses because they've had a giant turnover. And of course, with Biggs as the anchor, we want to make sure that they're supported. So they've got four new businesses that have signed leases, and they got 4 or 5 empty facilities, but there's lots of room there. And for people who are looking for a whole different market than the main downtown Anderson Township, it's a great opportunity.
Now, don't tell me Starbucks is staying, though.
Starbucks definitely is staying, yes, absolutely. And that's quite an anchor for them because it's a national chain. And I guess they look at a balance between national chains and regional chains and local chains, and that is definitely a national change. The most important thing about our concept of economic development is that we can't provide tax incentives like the city of Cincinnati or some of these others, simply because, out of every tax dollar that people pay, property tax only about 16 cents actually comes to the township. So it doesn't leave a whole lot of money to give away over 15 or 20 years. So our idea is simply that if we improve the environment, if we make this a great place for people to live and want to stay and want to spend their dollars in the community, the free market concept, that's how economic development will grow. There are a lot of programs out there that are available through state and federal programs, one called a JED.
I'm sure it stands for something.
Yeah, right. And it's not important what it stands for. But basically, a JED is where a township can join with a municipality and actually set up a district and collect taxes on the business that comes in. I'm talking about income taxes on the business. And if you had a giant company that you were trying to attract, that might work. But for smaller companies where there aren't that many employees, it would take 100 years to repay the money that you need to invest in it. So it's not that there's anything wrong with it, but just doesn't work. And to make it even worse is that which is a good thing in my opinion, but the legislature has phased out the personal property tax, or is phasing out personal property tax. So that means when companies come in and invest in a lot of equipment, there isn't a lot of personal property tax dollars to collect from it. So that's our direction, and it is quite different than just going out and trying to attract businesses through spending money. So we have to broaden the circle. We have to have people deal with other people to try to attract business. And for those who may not realize it, there is so much going on in this community in terms of business interests. It's absolutely amazing.
Do you mean by business interests, you mean businesses that want to come into the township?
Are coming in, yes. I guess the success record is the most important thing. And I know you asked me this before about how do we track success? And I have in front of me a report that Steve Severs, our assistant administrator, prepares every month. It talks about new construction right now, and then projects that are in development and modifications in development. When he started this thing, he would usually every month have three or four items, and now, as you can see, it just keeps, the list keeps growing. But when you look at these successes, I get very excited about it, but I know of a lot of things that are happening that the public doesn't know about yet, where people have plans in progress, but until they're approved and they start construction, they're just that, they're plans. But what we're seeing right now is that there are very little empty. There are very few empty locations along Beachmont Avenue. You probably read about Kroger buying the entire corner at Wolfango and Beachmont.
Right.
They bought 6 or 8 homes.
Now that I didn't know.
On Wolfango and on Bowen, so they control that entire corner. They have they're working on plans, so they haven't officially announced what it is they're going to do. But I guarantee you, knowing Kroger, it's going to be good.
Right.
And it's going to be great for the community, not just for that corner, but then that brings ancillary businesses across the street and up the block. Very positive. The other one that you probably see going on now is the location at Asbury and Beachmont. And that one is coming along.
The old bowling alley area.
Yeah, that's it. Kingpin Lanes, that's how people would know it. But it was that's a little tough site for some companies to have wanted to develop on because the way the land falls off and that sort of thing. But these folks have a great project. They actually will have the newer concept where the buildings are close, as you see when you drive by, are close to Beachmont Avenue, and then the entranceway is off of Asbury or through a drive, and then the parking's on the inside with an office building on the backside. So I think the bank is going to be on the corner, and they have BW3 is being built, and then they have one more site there that I don't think they have finalized yet. But they probably will as soon as they get the other 2 done, because they need to work. They'd be too close to work around. So those are the kind of things that we see going on. I'll give you an example. Is the one you and I've talked about, the old, what was originally the Thriftway property, and as most people think of as the Hollywood Video property. Mm-hmm. I guess we show our age when we refer to it as Thriftway. But that property is in the process of being developed finally. And it's amazing how many things are going on that you don't see yet. A year from now, you're just going to be absolutely amazed. 2 years from now, you will not believe what you see on Beachmont Avenue. But the important thing is that I have seen now for the last 6-8 months, maybe close to a year, that we're really ahead of the curve in Anderson Township on economic development. I don't want our committee to get credit for it or anybody to get credit for it, but there's something good happening that would cause people in these economic times to want to come to Anderson Township and be on Beachmont Avenue. So it's very much a plus.
Well, and I really like the way that you explained it when we opened this segment of the show today, in terms of not being able to offer those economic incentives, but to really create a place where a business wants to come and be successful, and to have residents that really want to stay here and not, head out to, I won't mention other places, but any places outside of the perimeter of Anderson. So, when it's very exciting to hear you talk about all of these things. When you said a year from now we won't even recognize what we'll see on Beachmont Avenue, and that sounds very exciting and wonderful for the residents.
It is, and we're going to continue to broaden the circle, and the more we talk about it, and the more that people talk about it and tell other people, that's how you really broaden that circle. That's how you get people involved in the process.
Right, and that's why this kind of a program is important, so that people can kind of hear, firsthand what kinds of things are going on.
Right.
So you mentioned just a little while ago about a committee. Can you tell us a little bit about the Economic Development Committee and what the folks on that committee do?
Yeah, I of course have been a very active member of the committee. 4 years ago, I convinced my fellow trustees that we needed to establish our own Economic Development Committee in Anderson Township. Chamber had a group of good, hardworking people, but their interests weren't totally focused on Anderson Township, and because of it, they weren't able to utilize tools that we might have as a government.
Right.
And so we did that, and Al Peter and I actually went out and recruited. We didn't just ask for volunteers. We actually recruited the people that we felt could help provide some immediate help. Paul Kitzmiller, from head of Core Resources, company that's right now very successful in the Washington Park development. They did all of that among many other things that they do. But Paul Kitzmiller became chairman, and with his help we recruited a number of other people, and the whole idea was not just people that were well-intended, but people who either owned larger properties or businesses on Beachmont or any of our business districts, or developers who were in the business of developing those kind of properties.
So folks with expertise.
Right. The expertise and the connections. People who, if you own a shopping center, and then who's out there that might be looking for a spot, not necessarily just for your spot, but for a spot. Once we got the group together, we started things like an outreach program where we actually are having meetings with the various business entities to try to get their feedback. We don't get as many people to attend them as we think should, but we come out with our own distribution list of information of available properties. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but boy, when you've got something in your hand that says this is available and this is available, now you've got a tool that you can give to other folks and start attracting businesses. That was a big focus of the committee. We set up, actually started out, I think, with 8 objectives, but we combined a couple down to 5 objectives. Number one was the viability of Beachmont Avenue. And that started, we set up subcommittees in each of these areas. The big thing on the viability of Beachmont started out with the 2 marquee sites that I talked about before, the Kingpin site and the Wolfangle site. Those we felt were the key ingredients because those were the 2 largest undeveloped, if you will, properties. We did in the beginning focus pretty much on Beachmont Avenue, and now we're beginning to move our focus a little bit with our success record towards Riverfront, towards Angkor, and some of these other businesses, towards Skytop.
And just kind of starting to spread out.
Right.
And if you are just tuning in, I'm host Michelle Beckham Corbin. My guest today is Anderson Township Trustee Russ Jackson, and we are talking about economic development in the township. Thanks for joining us.
As part of the Beachmont thing, we did hire a consultant to help us come up with some design standards and concepts just for the area from 5 Mile down to actually King Louis Court, if you're familiar with that stretch. Almost a Witt Road, if you will.
That's what I was trying to get a handle on what that was.
So that we could come up with some ideas of how we could convince people of the viability of doing it. We had a presentation a couple weeks ago of the plan, and it was certainly well received because we weren't trying to tell people how to do things. We were just suggesting what it could look like with redevelopment. One of the other major ones is to set, for that same area, a set of design standards. Because everyone on our committee believes that one of the keys to a viable Beachmont is an area that could be referred to as downtown, where people would picture in their mind this area. So we established that same area, 5 Mile to King Louis Court, with some design standards that are now in the process going through the zoning commission, not to tell people how exactly they had to do it, but to give them ideas of what kind of continuity they could gain. Types of signs, for example. They're not hard and fast. We're not telling people that they have to have, blue brick with red roofs, but rather that there was some continuity to it.
Right. It's almost like you're building a brand, and you want to have that consistent brand
Absolutely.
in a designated area.
That's exactly right. And we've worked in the state of Ohio has just been absolutely incredible in their help with its development of just how it would be laid out, and how curb cuts and that sort of thing. They really have been helpful, which is different than the way it was in the past. So we're very pleased that all of that is come together, and that allows us now to start we haven't stopped, we're close to being where we want to be, but now we can start getting involved in things. And one of probably the biggest single focus we'll want to get into in the next couple of years relates to housing options. And I think you and I have talked about this in other cases or other events where the housing options for empty nesters and for young people are very, very limited in our community. And when you've got 87.5% or whatever the current number is % of all your residences being single-family owner-occupied dwellings, it doesn't leave a whole lot. And so a lot of the focus has been on, number one, how can we develop these areas, particularly the riverfront. And I think where you're going to see that even more than any place will be down on the property along the riverfront, because it lends itself more to the residential areas than it does to the heavy commercial, just by sheer volume of traffic and that sort of thing. But that focus, along with getting ahead of, I say this all the time when people look at me, what's he talking about? Getting ahead of the redevelopment curve. As some of our neighborhoods get older, we've got to be sure that we're out in front with helping them reconstitute.
Refresh, right?
That's exactly
Refresh.
right. Because if you let it go too far, it can really bring a community down. And it's not that people want it to fade or diminish, but unless you're ahead of it, that's exactly what happens. And how do you do it? Encouraging young people to come in and upgrade properties. And once you have a few in a neighborhood that upgrade them, they attract other.
Right.
people. So that's kind of the focus that we like to move into, and do more of what we've, more of what we've already been doing.
I think what's really exciting is the fact that you're really, as a group, really looking at the future in terms of providing opportunities for people at all stages of life, right? Whether it's
Right.
the young people that have just graduated from college, whether it is the kids have already gone off to college, they're on their own, they don't need that 5-bedroom suburban house next to the elementary school anymore.
Exactly.
But love Anderson Township and love the resources and the shopping that they have here and don't want to leave. And we certainly don't want to lose them either.
We did a survey, and we'll do another one in the future, a business retention survey and a community retention survey. What do we need to do to make sure that people aren't leaving? And much of what we already had in place, but maybe not enough on Beachmont or in the business districts, was to make the community more walkable. Mm-hmm. We have all the trails, but you want it also to be walkable in the business districts. Streetscapes, you want to develop that, continue to develop and enhance that positive sense of community, because believe me, it contributes so much to property values. A lot of people can't quite grasp how that connects, but it absolutely connects. It's kind of funny. We were putting together a questionnaire that we do every year at Anderson Days, and it's not a highly professional, but it is a well done questionnaire to try to get a general feel for things. And I asked to add one question, and that question was, do you feel safe in your community?
Good question.
And the reason, well, I'll tell you the response first and then the reason. The response was that 92% of the people that responded either said very safe or safe.
And I'm not surprised by that.
Well, and
from my perspective anyway.
Because you have to watch the numbers, because we do have some crime. And we have a couple areas that on the fringes of our community that have a tendency to have some maybe a higher crime rate than we'd like. Not bad at all, but what's more important is, do our people feel safe?
Right.
That it really was much higher than I had expected, but I'm very pleased that was the kind of result that came out of it. Perception is reality.
It is.
And if people perceive themselves to be safe, that's the most we can hope for.
Yeah, and that was good. A lot of great foresight to add that question, to kind of get your finger on the pulse of the
yes.
community.
That doesn't mean there aren't people out there that do not feel safe, but the general feeling is one of being safe.
Right, which again leads to a great community and a place that people want to remain.
Exactly, and it relates back to the property values.
Yes.
And that's really the key, that people want to move to the community, stay in the community, and as you know, and we've talked about, that's the real problem, is allowing them to stay when their initial needs are fulfilled. And usually when the kids off to college, all of a sudden, hey, where are we going to go?
Exactly.
We don't need a 4-bedroom house with 3,000, 4,000 square feet.
You don't need to move to Florida either.
No,
you can
not
stay
at all.
right here in Anderson
that's right.
Township.
You don't need to move to Florida. That just costs you a lot of money. So.
Well, Russ, we only have about a minute or two left. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with viewers? Just
that we are looking at the end of the year. We will be appointing people to our various committees, and we would encourage people to apply for any one of our 7 or 8 committees that they feel appropriate, that there's some appropriate connection, and business community, if that's Economic Development Committee is one, and please let us know. We will be reaching out.
And what's the best way, if they're watching the show and they're really getting inspired, what's the best way to...
Just send an email to myself or to Steve Sievers at andersontownship.org and express your interest and attach a resume or some information about yourself.
Your background.
Right. We do encourage... what's interesting about the applications is we always get a lot of people who are fairly new to the community, and that's good. Mm-hmm. But we also want to be sure that we have a balance between those who are new and those who have been around a while.
And those who remember that Thriftway was on BC.
Well, no, not that. No, not that long. That's way, way beyond the pale.
Oh, but you've got such great stories about that. No, you have to tune into old episodes to know what we're talking about with the shootout at Thriftway. So, well, Russ, thank you for being here today. I always love hearing about what's happening in Anderson Township and also your insight.
Good. Thank you.
And viewers, thank you for joining us. This was Trustee Talk, and we hope to see you again next time. Thanks for joining us.